As I say, I hope you're a little bit intrigued. This provocation is practical as well as cerebral. Because I don't really do cerebral, and perhaps I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. But the idea is to stimulate our thinking a little bit about doing and the value of it. And as you know, I'm Gill Bond. I'm sure you've read a little bit about me in the programme, so I won't bore you with my history, other than to say that somehow I have managed to steer a career in the creative industries for the past 30 odd years, which has been great, exciting, still interests me, still want to do it, and still surprise myself with how much of a buzz I get, not from necessarily working with people as such, which I do. Participatory arts has always been the raison d'etre, if you like, for the artistic work that I produce, but also still get the buzz out of just creating, sitting down, doing something. And it's that I want to explore and talk about a little bit, that buzz. The session is divided. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and how I've put this into a context. But as you can see, I have devised a little practical exercise for us to be doing whilst we discuss, okay? And then we'll see what that brings out. And Ros is going to write down things that we discuss based around my introduction, and we'll put it down on the board. I have come with no agenda other than to discuss this. So yeah, I'll start. And I do have to write. I wish I could just sit and speak about it, but I do have to write some things down so that I don't forget what I wanted to say. So I have made myself a few notes, so I'm going to refer to those as I speak. So, as I say, my starting point for this was about the buzz of going on a creative journey. Whether that is literally when you're making something and you get into that zone of making or developing a film, or whether it's talking to colleagues about a project idea and you kind of get onto a journey of devising that, or a theatre piece or a storytelling, or creating a song with a group of people. Whatever that creative journey is, I have started to realise that it does something to me in my head. I like it. I like feeling that. Yeah, it is like a journey, a pathway that you start to go down. I suppose I've always felt very strongly, a bit like sort of, I would almost say with a religious fervour, that creativity is fundamental, and I really want to get it out there, to give opportunity, to open up those opportunities in all sorts of different contexts. In thinking about it, sort of the two most creative motivations are our ability to explore and invent things, which has enabled us as human beings to survive really in this sort of quite unpredictable world that we're faced with. But it's also helped us to build our cultural identities and examine and challenge and change things. So exploration and invention is key, but also to construct pleasurable pastimes that bring us comfort and relax us and allows us to rejuvenate ourselves and recover our energies, and to receive and participate in stimulating and life-enhancing activities, and that promotes health and well-being. And I'm sure you're probably, sort of more than experienced than I am in talking about the actual direct effect of that. But I wonder and I worry about where is the space for creativity as we're going into the 21st century, and what are we doing to enable that space to continue and grow. Quite a lot of my work happens through education. I've been involved in the last, this is the second year now of delivering something called the Creative Arts and Media Diploma for young people across Kirklees, from different schools, from lots of different backgrounds, coming together to work together on creative projects. So I have dipped my toe a little further into formal education, if you like, other than, sort of when you're an artist or an arts organisation, maybe a bit like you, Mary, and possibly you, Ruth, who you kind of skirt on the outside of the sort of formal education. Suddenly I find myself pitched a little deeper into this world. And I suppose currently I feel very worried about it, to be truthful. Certainly in the secondary education sphere. I see that education is becoming more academically focused, and that we're drawing away from a practical and applied learning. So are we equipping people, young people, emerging adults, with the skills and the confidence for creative thought and activities that will enable them to engage fully in the opportunities that work and life offer them? I worry that we're not, and I throw that out as something just to have churning round there. I just worry that, sort of, again, particularly at secondary level, the focus on the sort of academic without it having any relationship to the practical, without inspiring, the whole business we've had about the horse care recently, it's you can see there are different pathways in. Why are we judging that in the way that it is done now? Horse care, diplomas, and if it's not a GCSE, there are a lot of other courses that young people can follow, and this has all been assessed against sort of recent sort of government guidelines as to being equivalent to GCSEs. So diplomas and MVQs and all of those sort of diplomas that some young people have been taking have had an equivalence to GCSEs, which schools have been able to count. And you go into all this and there's a madness that starts to happen in terms of all this. But for some young people, they learn better about how to do maths if they're measuring the horse and working out how much dinner it needs. That's a truth, and yet because of this obsession with grading and counting points and all the rest of it that we have, it kind of then it has devalued certain qualifications within the eyes of the school. So there are some schools, the school who I am working with in partnership to deliver the diploma at the moment, I have to say, who have decided that they're not going to do any of that kind of qualification with their young people, these sort of applied learning, because they want to focus on that academic attainment which they can count with points. So that is sad. That is sad for the children who attend that school. Exactly. This is a big comprehensive school with a lot of students at it. So, you know, they're not all going to fit into that. But that is the way that, you know, sort of government policy is making schools think, unless they're very robust in terms of their outlook.
What you're saying is, how do we get them to think outside the box? They're so boxed in.
Yeah, the outside the box one is something just to hang on to there, I think. I just found it interesting as well that taking that a step further, I was listening to good old Radio 4, and they had a programme about 3 young entrepreneurs and you know, sort of their journey that they were making. So, you know, 2 of them were, you know, in the creative industries particularly, and all of them had dropped out of formal education at some stage, be it at secondary level or degree level or whatever. They'd all dropped out in order to pursue this creative journey that they'd started on their heads. And they found the learning. They brought people in to inform what they were doing, but the formal education wasn't helping them there. And I thought that was interesting to hear.
I watched a load of children walking to school and remarked upon it this morning. And they were all walking up the road. It was a nice sunny day, really, for this time of year. And I remarked to my daughter Ellie, I said, they look like they're going off to prison or somewhere, don't they? They were all shoulders hunched and they were walking along the road like this. I said, that's awful. I said, how awful that all those young people are walking, and I'm talking about tens and tens, you know, like 50, 60, 70 kids walking towards school, and you could see them, shoulders hunched. They did not look as though they didn't have their cups half full. Is that the right way?
No, they did.
They did? No.
What? That was it.
Yeah, they didn't have their cups half full.
Or they might be being realistic about what life holds for these people in the future.
Well,
It's not really young anymore, is it?
I don't think there was fun necessarily being young anyway.
I think
some people do and some people don't, and it depends on.
But that was just a coincidence that I mentioned that.
Let's hold those thoughts.
The teachers would be walking in with their shoulders in any other position down, because I think, I'm retired now, but I was a primary teacher in Scotland, and to me, in the 20 years or so that I taught small people, it was a delight, it was a joy to go to work, because they were so creative. They hadn't learned to expect to fail. They were coming for a good time. I was going to work for a good time, and then things started going like this. And if Ashley came in and said, I would like to, I've written a poem or something, say, oh, well, let's hear your poem. And then all the other children say, oh, well, she can write a poem, I can write a poem.
So let's just hold these thoughts for a moment, if I may. And could you just write up on there, out of the box and fail? I think are quite interesting words that have come out of there. And I just want to lead us through a little bit, because education is a whole thing, and we can sit here and talk about education, and I don't want to do that necessarily. It's not what, I did that last time. I don't want to do that, but I wanted to pinpoint it because I think it is an issue, and it's relevant to what we're talking about in society. Our space, the space to create. Where are we creating these spaces to be creative? So it is essential in learning, and I'm sure we're sitting around here as creative people and we're all going to say that, aren't we? We are. How do we preserve this? We have creative partnerships who have written, have worked, have reported on, have evaluated this positive work that's happened over the last, how many years? 10 years? At least 10 years. And yet we are still, I feel, rowing against the tide at the moment. What are we going to do? How are we going to create that space? Is it going to just come through? That is another argument in terms of, maybe the space to create is somewhere else. Maybe it's, it will, it will sort of happen by osmosis to a certain extent. And I thought about this, and I was thinking about, you know, sort of your modern day life now, you know. Provides us with ready-cooked meals and mass-produced clothes and flat-pack furniture, and the requirement for practical day-to-day creativity is actually no longer essential for our lives. 50 years ago, just living your life was all about practical application. And, you know, some were routine necessities and tedious to the extreme, I'm sure. I'm certainly not a great advocate for, you know, going back in time and all that stuff. But the skill and the satisfaction of laying a good fire in the grate, you know, shouldn't be denied. That's still a sort of creative, or baking a well-risen loaf, you know, is you know, creativity on a domestic level, and in themselves build a confidence and a tenacity in mastering the practical. And confidence and tenacity are other words, other skills that we need to be able to foster in order to find that creative space that we're thinking about and looking at. Because these activities were stepping stones into lifelong skills and interests. And I'm going to take a liberty now, because our lovely lady, who I don't even know your name, who's here as an attendant, happened to tell me as she walked in when we were talking that she has been a sugar crafter all her life, and learnt sugarcraft, making this lady here, and learnt sugarcraft from her aunt when she was a young person. And I just thought that actually for this part of, you know, sort of was relevant in terms of what we're saying. Now we don't have to cook that meal from scratch. We don't have to knit a jumper to keep warm, or make a hearth rug to add comfort to our home. Yet, you know, sort of that was something that was key to many people's lives. And yet those skills can take us somewhere else. It's not just about the doing of that. It can lead into other things, other ways of thinking, of building your confidence in working with your hands, in allowing your mind to wander around subjects and find conclusions, to think about creative activities, creative solutions. So now we can get to places quicker. We can get information at a click, and we can push a button to be entertained. And there are many advantages to all of this, and I embrace the new. I'm not advocating about going back, but only bringing with us what is of value. And I fear that we could miss a trick. I fear that we could be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, if we don't harness what is good about keeping those skills and keeping that brain function, if you like, and we've been talking about brain function, that sort of thing, together into the 21st century.